Good afternoon, everybody. I am used to talking about investments and managing funds in a global environment, but here I'm going to share with you a fundamental transformation that is very close to my heart, and that is the transformation of the financial technology, or commonly known as the fintech landscape in the Philippines. Many of you, I guess, haven't heard of the term fintech before. It's one of those buzzwords like blockchain or Bitcoin that have been permeating the society of today. But I'd like to keep the definition short and simple. What is fintech, or financial technology? It is simply technology that is applied towards making banking services and financial services available for the everyday Filipino. And this is how I would put it in the context of our local environment today. Financial technology, or fintech in the Philippines, is the application of technology to make basic financial services. And by that I mean loans, insurance, and investments available to the local Filipino population. And more importantly, the low-income Filipino population. Let me share with you a few statistics as to why this topic is very relevant for us today. In our society, in the Philippines, 7 out of 10 families are unbanked. That means only 30% of our population have access to a deposit account, an insurance product, or an investment product. And that is a very glaring statistic, given that in the more developed economies, typically 80% and above of their population have access to these services. But why is that the case? Why is it that only 70% have access? And I'd like to put you to that journey, that there are 3 major reasons why this is the case. The first case has to do with affordability. It seems like financial services here in this country are not as affordable as it should be. The median income of a low-income family in the Philippines that is saved or put into savings is in the tune of $6. That's just 300 pesos per month. And when we look at a wealthy family or a well-to-do family, it's typically in the range of $600. That's 100 times increase or difference. And here we see that there is a big gap, and that is really the income gap. But how do we address this? How do we address the fact that most of our countrymen are not able to invest, deposit, or make insurance products available to their families? And this is the key. The key is to make it affordable, to make it accessible, and to make it convenient for them. And I'd like to share with you a fundamental transformation that has happened, and this has made it possible for the last 3 years that we are now able to make things more accessible through the ubiquity of mobile phones. Who in this room owns a mobile phone? Almost everyone does. Who in this room owns and has a bank account? I would say around 60%. And this is really the fundamental transformation that we're seeing, is that the Philippines is known as the tech capital of the world. We used to own the simple phones like the Nokia ones used for SMS. At its heyday, the Philippines sent 2 billion SMSs a day, which is more than the entire Europe combined. An amazing statistic. But now mobile phones are not just used for texting and calling. They're used for apps. The access to fundamentally game-changing technology by accessing applications not on your PC, but on your mobile phone. And nowadays, there is another transformation that has taken place, which is connectivity. Who knows that right now in the Philippines, we have 7,107 islands, and they can now be connected via 3G and LTE technology, thanks to our telecommunication providers that have made this possible in a great scale. And last but not the least, I mentioned finance apps. Who in this room owns a Facebook Messenger? Almost everybody. Who in this room has heard of WeChat? A lot have. Finance apps are game-changing technology in that it's able to bridge a low-income population, low GDP per capita population, to and financial inclusion mindset in a high GDP per capita population. Take the example of China. China has a population of 1.35 billion people. That's a lot more than what we can picture in this room. And yet 750 million of that population is engaged using WeChat, not only for messaging and calling their friends. In fact, there is a technology that's called WeChat Pay. In my recent visit to Shanghai and Beijing, I would go to a vending machine to order my Coca-Cola, which is a favorite of mine. And when I go and order, it does not accept anymore the regular banknotes or the yuan RMB. In fact, it doesn't even have that hole that you can slip in your bills. But the only thing that it accepts is WeChat Pay through a QR code. And then in that extreme example, there's even a beggar in Beijing. Instead of asking for alms or coins, he had this ID with a QR code in the middle, which you could use to give alms. No cash as well. And I think if China, with a population of 1.35 billion, is able to achieve this level of inclusivity, not through the traditional means, but through digital means, there's no excuse for a population of 107 million, like the Philippines, to achieve this level of inclusivity and growth. And this is the statistics that we have. More than half, according to the Philippine Statistics Authority, more than half of 22.5 million families belong to the poor and low-income classes. The unbanked families could avail of these services if it were made more affordable. In this country, there is a big phenomenon which P&G and Unilever have capitalized on for a long time, and that is the production of sachets. Sachet toothpaste, sachet shampoo, or products that are sold in sari-sari stores. What we're challenging today is that why cannot we provide financial products in a sachet manner, in a smaller size but palatable size to our audience? And the three things that I've mentioned a while ago, mobile phones, connectivity, and the availability of game-changing apps have and will make this possible. And I'd like to challenge your imagination now to the concept of sachet financial services. What does that mean? To open a bank account right now, you would need at least $100 to open a savings account in a traditional financial institution. Through financial technology, banks can now access the low-income populations by giving them deposit accounts to as low as $1, from $100 to $1. And you may ask, why? Why is that the case? And the key to this is the availability of the micro-enterprises in this country. Who knows what a micro-enterprise is? You may know them more commonly as the sari-sari stores. They're available across your house. They're available just around the corner. Just to give you a statistic, there are 135 micro-enterprises or sari-sari stores per 10,000 families in the Philippines. As compared to banks, there are only 4. 4 banks for 10,000 families. That's a glaring statistic. What fintech enables us to do is to go from a brick-and-mortar banking solution into a more democratized solution by allowing individuals to open accounts for $1 and visiting their sari-sari store as a channel for the banks to deal with them. And that, in short, is sachet financial services. Another big problem that we have in this country is the access to capital or loans. In fact, loans in the provincial regions can charge as much as 30% per month for an unknowing borrower because they do not have access to the formal lending system in banks. Through sachet financial services, we're able to go to these people and provide a more competitive rate at around 6 to 7%, which would definitely help them alleviate from their status of having hard access to capital. Another concept is microinsurance. There is an irony going on here in that insurance is needed by everybody, and yet the poor are unable to afford it. The poor usually are more vulnerable to all these life-threatening or maybe income-threatening events that are protected by insurance, and yet they're the least able. So what does fintech do? Fintech makes available in a sachet form insurance for a family, life insurance for an individual for 3 months for as low as 40 cents, 40 US cents, when typically it would cost around 200 US dollars for a policy that you pay over a long period of time. That, in my mind, is a step towards financial inclusion. You make a product that everybody needs available throughout in a more consumable format. And last but not the least, there's this concept of micro investments. Who of you in this room are millennial? I would say a lot of you are. And there's one of these things that characterizes a millennial in that savings doesn't seem to be in their top of mind. Spending is typically in the top of mind. But one thing that we learn in this industry in investments is that the biggest asset is not money. The biggest asset for any individual, especially the youth, is time. Over time, if you know how to invest, even in small amounts, you're able to reach your financial goals and achieve financial freedom at an earlier stage. And that is where micro investment comes in. Nowadays, in order to buy an investment product, which is typically known as a mutual fund or a trust fund, you would need 200 US dollars to participate. And that is very much unaffordable for many of our countrymen, as we've explained a while ago. Micro investment, through the power of mobile phones, connectivity, and an app, can enable investments for as low as 1 US dollar to a trust fund or a mutual fund. And you can do all of that in your phone. You don't need to physically go to a bank, queue up, fill up a lot of forms to achieve it. All you need to do is to take that phone, open that investment app, and not only does it provide you access to investments, but it also provides advice in a very graphical and simple way for investors to know what they're getting into and to invest with as low as 1 US dollar. Isn't that amazing? So the question is, where do we go from here? I believe that a radical change is needed for financial inclusion to become a reality in the Philippines today. There have been a lot of attempts in the past, but we stand at the pivot point of a very important transformation. And that is enabled by digital technology, by the ubiquity of mobile phones that are now smartphones, by connectivity, and also by the availability of game-changing apps. Fintech is a buzzword, but a buzzword can be made into a reality to change and touch lives. We believe that right now we are in a unique position. The President has made financial inclusion a priority in his agenda. The regulator, the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, is progressive and forward-looking. The SMEs, or the micro, small, medium, and enterprises, are available throughout the Philippines in a way that banks have not been available in the past. The question is, what do we do about this? We believe that the time for this, from dreams to become a reality, is today. The time to act is now. Thank you, and have a great day ahead.